All right, I just finished marking your quizzes. For the most part, it looked very good. So this is the correction of this quiz. So just look, I guess you can forward to the parts that you need to focus on because you know what you got wrong, right? So this was supposed to be 980 and 700, and you were supposed to find the GCF, LCM of both. And so for GCF, you basically just want to write it out somewhere, right? Both prime factorizations in expanded form, right? And then whichever ones they share in common, right? So some of you select these two or those two, it doesn't matter, but it's 1-to-1, right? They have to have a partner across. So there it is, right? So the only ones that you can match up will be 2 and another 2 and a 5 and a 7. And that's 4 times 5, which is 20. 20 times 7 is 140. Okay? So we have that there. For the LCM, it's the greatest power of all the prime factors that appear. So you're going from smallest to largest. So the 2 has a power of 3 as its greatest power. 5, which shows up for both, but even if it didn't, right, you take the highest power of it. And then 7, it's 7 squared. So when I see that, you got already half and then another half for figuring out what it is. So this would be 8 times 25 times 49, right? 8 times 25 is 200 times 49, you do the math, right? So it's almost 10,000, right? 2 times 50 is 100, so 200 times 50, we're at 9,800, okay? So that's your LCM and this is your GCF. Then we have calculate the cube root of 216. So you need to find the prime factorization. You need to do this, okay? You can't just guess. So 2 goes in there once. It goes into the 1 0 times, right? Like if you know your division, and then so then you bring down, right, you brought down the 1, it goes in there 0 times, and you bring down the 6, that's 16, and so 2 goes in there 8 times, and then it's just 254, 227, 3 times 9, and 3 breaks down into 3 times 3. And then you have your groups of 3, right, which is exactly what you want. So cube root of 216, watch your notation, is the same thing as cube root of 2 cubed times 3 cubed. Okay, so make sure you have those there, and then you can cancel that out, which ends up being 2 times 3, which is 6. Okay, so make sure you have that proper notation there. So 6 is the cube root of 216. Could ask you now, is this a perfect square as well? And you would have to tell me no, because there's no way of making groups of 2, right, that are the same. Right, to be 2 squared, and then what's up with that 2, right? It wouldn't work. And so it's only a perfect cube in this case. Then this is expand and simplify. So here you have to pay close attention, okay? This is where I noticed quite a few mistakes being done here. One of which is, notice that all of these 3 here, the -2, this bracket, and this bracket, they're all multiplying, right? When you have something like that, I saw a lot of you taking the -2, multiplying it into this bracket, and then also multiplying it to this. And that is incorrect. Okay, that is not correct. So what I would actually suggest here is I would take the -2 and leave that out and FOIL or distribute this first, right? So 2k times 3, so 2k squared and 3k squared would be 6k to the 4, and then here you get -8k squared, and then you move over to the 5, right? 5 times 3 is 15 positive, and that's k to the power of 3 because it's k times k squared, right? And then it's -20k if you go 5k times -4. And then the last one, -2 times 3 is -6k squared. -2 times -4 is +8, right? So this is one way of doing it. Some of you got it right doing it differently, but if you want to distribute the -2, it only goes into the first bracket, and then you take that answer and multiply it by this, okay? Otherwise, it's as if there's a -2 here and a -2 in front of that other bracket, and that's not correct. And before I distribute this in here, I clean it up, okay? I already arrange it if possible. My k cubed is here. There's a k squared here and a k squared there, and that's -14k squared. And then there is the -20k and the +8. Okay, and then the last step is to multiply all of this by -2. So it'd be -12k to the 4, -30k cubed, +28k squared, and then negative times negative, right? That's +40k minus 16. Okay, so I'm just checking my answer key. Yep, that is what it is. So there you have it. And so you need to show your work here carefully, right? If you did it another way, that's fine. But the biggest mistake was the -2 being distributed amongst this and that. So you're doing this to both. And then when the two multiply, it's again technically it's wrong to do that. Okay, so make sure you don't do it. If you want to go ahead and just pick one of them, actually, right, you could multiply -2 into that or this, but not both. That's all I'm going to say there. B, expand and simplify. So don't forget the equal sign. Some teachers are like that you're going to have in pre-cal are going to be picky with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this, and I'm going to have that. This is actually the factoring of a perfect square. And then I'm going to distribute, right? So you get 8x squared plus 10x. Then I'm going to go here plus 4x plus 5, right? So this is what I get from that, minus, do this, right? This negative affects, right? It will affect what you get out of this. It's almost like having the -2 in front of things, right? The -2 in front of something. It will affect everything. So I'm going to first multiply this out. That's 4x squared, right? If you go here, then it's plus 2x, another plus 2x, plus 1, close brackets. I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to clean both sides before I continue. This gives me, right, this gives me 14x plus 5 minus 4x squared. That's plus 4x plus 1. And then you go ahead and distribute the negative, right? So -4x squared, and the negative affects this, and it's a -4x, and negative affects that as well. That's -1. And now you need to do this one more time. So this x squared and this x squared turn out to be 4x squared. This 14x and this -4x is just 10x left. And then the plus 5 and the -1 is just plus 4. Okay, so this is what you were supposed to get as your final answer. So if you miss a sign and you somehow don't have an x squared, right away you lose half a mark here and there, and then you lose the marks there that you don't want to lose. Okay, here, so here you have to pay attention, and this is where I go through the steps, right? And hopefully you're doing some of that factoring in the factoring booklet, and you're walking through that. Okay, making sure you practice these. It takes practice. It won't just come naturally. It will not. You will run out of time. You will freeze, right? You don't want to do that. Okay. So basically, we're always thinking, is it a DOS or PST, right? After, of course, taking out the negative and the GCF, and then is it either a 1 or a is not equal to 1? That's basically how you always want to look at things. And by the way, always thinking, is it a multivariable scenario? Then I'm just gonna have to pay extra attention, right? So here I tried to take out a negative. No, I don't need to rewrite. And so I can just go ahead and factor this quite simply by just taking C, and it's positive, right? I know that both of these are going to have the same sign as B. So -4, -5, let's try that. That gives you 20, and it adds up to -9. So these two are the ones that work. Okay, and you can do the double smiley face, right? -4x, -5x, that is -9x, so it checks out. Moving over to this side, you know that it's 1.5, right? So then you have to apparent, right? It's very apparent that you have to rewrite it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay. I notice that there's a negative in front of the highest power. I want that out, and I notice that they're all even. So I can just take out that. It turns into positive. This will, right? 2 divided by -2 is 1, negative, and so you're just left with the m. 24 divided by 2 is -12, and you're left with that. Here you notice, right? I kind of rushed into this, right? But if you look back, if you look at this one here, it's definitely not a difference of squares, right? Then I take out the GCF and the negative, and you look again, right? First of all, this is a negative, so right away it's not a PST. It's definitely not a DOS. So you're left with this being an A equal to 1 scenario, but make sure you take out the negative in front of the squared. Okay, a lot of you are forgetting that. And then take out a number if possible. See if you can take out a variable yet on top of that, right? That doesn't happen very often, but be aware. And so A is equal to 1 it is. So you keep the -2, and we're going to factor this. It's just single variable. It's going to be m and m, right? M and m. There we go. We're craving that right now. So I know that 3 and 4 will work out. Because it's negative, one of them will have to be negative. And because you want the -1, you put the negative in front of the 4, because when you go 3 minus 4, that's -1, which is what B is, right? Or else it doesn't work. So it's +3 minus 4, okay? Like that. You can do a quick check. 3m minus 4m is -m, which is what you want, okay? So there were your marks in that particular case. I go over to C. Right away you notice, oh, multivariable. I've got x and y, right? It could be a and b, p, q, it doesn't matter. And I've got a mix in the middle. So right away I'm like, okay, multivariable, right? But then I look, so I don't need to rewrite this. Can I take out a negative? No, I don't need to, because this term here doesn't have one. Can I possibly take out something else? Right? Oh, 3 goes into here, 3 goes into there, does not go in there. So can't do that, right? Okay, I've checked for rewriting, I've checked for GCF and negatives. Now I'm going to check for, it's definitely not a difference of squares, right? Because there's 3 terms. Is it possibly a PST, right? Is this possibly a perfect square trinomial? Some of you missed it and you went for the matrix method and it ends up working. But you see that both brackets are exactly the same. How do I check for PST? I take the square root of the first term here, and that gives me 3x. So it's a perfect square. 16y squared. That is 4y. That is also a perfect square. It works out so far. And then I check for the middle term, which is 2 times, right? It's always 2 times 3x times 4y. And so 2 times 3 is 6, times 4 is 24xy. It checks out. So this is a PST, right? It is a PST. So we're going to use these two, right? We're going to say that it's 3x plus, because of this, it's plus 4y. It's either plus or minus, right? And it's squared. So please, even if you use the matrix and you notice that it's this, make sure you write it like that as well. I didn't mark it wrong, but this is the convention, okay? Next, we have this one. Oh, two terms, and it's a subtraction, right? Is it a DOS? Step back one step, though. Because, right, it's multivariable, first of all, just observing that. I don't need to take out a negative because there's no negative in front of this term, right? I'm going to try out to take out a number. Can't do that, right? And so I'm going to check, is it a difference of squares? So 36a squared, you take a square root of that, that's 6a. You take the square root of the second term, which is 7, right? 49, square root of 49 is 7, and square root of b squared is b. So yes, it is, right? So therefore it is a difference of squares. So you take that, 6a plus 7b, and then the next one will be 6a minus 7b. It's not always multivariable. It could have just been this, right? 36a squared minus 49, and then it would have just turned out to be 6a plus 7 and 6a minus 7. Okay, so just watch out for that. And then we have E, was a little bit more challenging, 1.5, so probably a GCF, right? I don't need to rewrite it. I'm going to take out a negative for sure. I can't take out anything else, so just a negative. That gives you half a mark there. So it essentially changes the sign of everything in that trinomial, okay? And then you're noticing, you're checking, it doesn't look like a PST because, right, that is negative right away disqualifies it. Don't even have to check further. And the middle isn't even, and you can't take the square root of 21 or 8. So, right, like there's a lot of hints here. So we try, right? So 3, 7. And I notice that C is negative. So the factors that I'm going to try with, I'm going to have opposite signs. So I'm going to give it a try. Okay. So if you put negative there, this gives you negative 12. And this gives you positive 14. If you add that up, you get positive 2. Not even close, right? So even flipping the sign, you'll just get a negative 2 out of it. That doesn't work for us. So we need to resort to a different strategy. So I'm still going to try 3 and 7. I'm going to flip the numbers, and I'm going to try putting the negative down here. That's negative 6, and that is 28. And I know already that that's not going to work. Right? It's not going to work for me because that gives me positive 22, and I'm looking for negative 17, not positive 17. You're looking at the factored out, right? You factored out the negative. So, okay, let's keep going. 3, 7, 1, 8, right? That's my only other option here. One of them has to be negative. So you get negative 24 and 7. Oh, this looks like it will be. I've got a negative 27 with this setup. If you flip the signs, then this would have been positive 17, which some of you probably looked up here, but you need to look up there. Okay, so this is the one that works. This setup works. So I'm checking, is it multivariable? No, it's just one. So the negative stays there, and then it's 3k plus 1, and then it's 7k minus 8. That's the only way it works. And there you have your, and you can do a quick check, right? This is 7k minus 24k. That gives you that 17 there. Okay, moving on. I want to go home, guys. Okay, here we have that. I'm gonna check to multivariable. Okay, I don't need to rewrite. I don't need to take out a negative. I have a feeling that this could be PST because, right, both positive. This is even. I'm going to check. Is it a PST? Right? Because if it is, it's a lot less work, in my opinion. So 25m squared, take a square root, that's 5m. Take a square root of 16t squared, that is 4t. Let's check if the middle term works out. 2 times 5m times 4t. This is 10 times 4 is 40. MT. Okay, so yes, it is a PST. So I'm going to use these two, 5M plus, oh, I'm making a mistake already. That's how badly I want to go home. Minus, because of this, 4T, and that's squared. Okay, and I put the equal sign here, and that's a PST. Some of you ran out of time. Just practice, okay? So here we have another, the last one. I need to take out a negative because, right, I don't need to rewrite it. I'm just going to take out a negative, and that leaves me with 25 a squared minus 20 ab plus 3b squared. It's not a, it cannot be a PST. You don't even have to try because you can't take the square root of 3, right? So this is an a is not equal to 1 scenario. You have to use the matrix. So 5 and 5, and then 1 and 3. Because it's positive, we're going to use the same sign. Both factors are going to have the same sign, right? So you try negative 15, and that's negative 5. Voila, right? It adds up to negative 20. That's exactly what we need. So we have 5, right? 5a minus 1b, or just b, because this is a multivariable. And then it's 5a minus 3b. And there it is. Have a great weekend. Make sure you practice the factoring booklet and the pages in the textbook as well. And I'll be posting a video of our first lesson for our next unit on Monday. Okay? Have a good weekend, folks. And I will be emailing the test to those that wrote it in class. Have a good one.